So today I have a very, very special guest with me, and Raunak. Hi,
Hi, how are you, Megha?
I'm awesome.
Great, great.
So to start with the first question, the question is
Hmm.
something which I ask all my guest speakers. So
Hmm.
what is self-love to you, Raunak?
Hmm. Um, so I have a different take on self-love, right? And I'll tell you why that is. Because I feel like self-love is a conversation that has recently been having a lot of people have been like talking about it on social media, right? You can probably say that it's gained importance over time. And when any subject is only exposed through social media, there are a lot of pros and cons to it. Because anyone can say anything and it goes viral, and then you only see those things that go viral because they go viral, right?
Yes.
So I look at self-love in two ways. One is like kinetic energy, potential energy. I'm just using a science analogy to explain this, right? But I'll tell you why I'm doing this, because I feel like self-love is first about accepting who you are, but at the same time it's also about accepting your potential for growth, right? And if one of them is missed, then I don't think it's self-love, then it is what I call self-pampering, which is not the good thing. The way you would want to love your kids but not pamper them, I think you would want to love yourself but not pamper yourself. So I
Hmm.
think the right way I look at self-love is to accept everything that has happened and is happening to you, which has made you who you are, but at the same time understand that you have choices to live differently like tomorrow, right? So self love, the way I would put it, is accepting who you are and accepting your potential for growth.
Okay. So you said accepting oneself, right? I want to
Hmm.
know, where is this definition coming from? You have a very different
Accepting
definition.
oneself.
Yeah. So was,
Okay.
was
Yeah.
there an incident in your life when you struggled to accept yourself and now you have accepted yourself?
So I think, I mean, like considering we are in our 20s, there would be a few experiences that all of us would have had at some point that make us feel a little different about ourselves. And likewise, I have my own journey as well. But I'll tell you where I'm really coming from. Partly my concept of self-love is based on my practices with NLP and Gestalt and all the other like therapeutic things which I've learned as a skill, right? So it's coming from that background as well. But
Okay.
more importantly, I feel like when I say accept yourself, I feel like, oh, so like what I mean is accept the truth about yourself. The thing
What
is,
is the
it's
truth about yourself?
the truth about yourself is whatever has happened to you, whatever is happening to you, anything that you think is flawed about you, you should be able to express it in language first. For example, suppose your relationship with your mother or your father is not the way it should be. There are two things. You can lie to yourself about it, saying that, nay, 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 everything's okay, which is what most of us do. Or you can accept the fact that at this point of time, I am not where I want to with my mother or with my father, with my brother, with my sister, with my girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, and then work towards improving it, right? It's very comfortable to skip the first step of honesty and
Mhm.
just avoid the problem entirely, right? So that is what I mean by accepting yourself and accepting like your situation, where you accept the stuff that which is uncomfortable, which you have to deal with. So like a tighter way of putting this is what I normally always say in my conversations is, a blind man can't sweep the floor no matter how good of a broom he has, because if you're not willing to see the dirt, then you can't clean anything up anyways, right? So that's what I mean by accepting yourself. Ultimately it's about honesty.
Because generally, whatever we focus on the goody goody things in our life. We generally
Exactly.
avoid the dirty things because it's like having the uncomfortable questions with our own
Yes.
self or with our loved ones, and who koi nahi karna chahta life mein. It's so
Exactly.
difficult to see the dirt and confront it.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
we see it, we generally try to avoid it. Arey, koi baat nahi.
Yeah.
If I'm fat, just avoid it. If I'm not
Yes.
gaining something in my life or not able to do my business, just avoid it.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
That's right.
when we talk about self love, बहुत बारी it can be related to self hate also, or absence of self hate, right?
Hmm.
So was there
Hmm.
an incident in your life when you, obviously we cannot be in self love 24/7. Har bari,
Hmm.
every person has this incident where you
Hmm.
really don't love yourself. Maybe it can be for a
Hmm.
fraction of minutes or an hour or so. Was there an
Hmm.
incident in your life when you felt like, oh God, I cannot love myself?
Yeah, all the time. In fact, so I can talk about big incidents also, and I can talk about like the smaller incidents as well. So smaller incidents, for instance, in my case, one of the biggest moments of self-hate for me is I feel guilty when I'm not being productive, even when I'm resting sometimes. Right. And that's really not good. And I know with your smile, I know you feel the same way, right? So
I
you
feel
know
the
what I'm
same
talking
way,
about.
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that
But
is one very critical way of self-hate, which must be avoided. So that though I feel all the time, even yesterday, right? So it's not something that is a big incident. But otherwise, yeah, sometimes like especially in intimate romantic relationships, when something goes wrong, right? You blame yourself. So that guilt is also there. And when you go through that, you feel like so much wrong has happened to me and from me that I just really can't love who I am right now. So that was the bigger incident that sort of got me into all of this, which was the failure of my romantic relationship. But the smaller incidents like this keep happening. So I think a lot of it is with guilt and shame in that sense.
I can relate with it. I think in our society, Indian society, there is this hustle that you have to work
Yeah.
24/7. In fact, when
Yeah.
I was in London, I realized people pause, and it is so important to pause because
Yeah.
then you become more productive. But in India, people don't know
Yeah.
about it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they feel like
Yeah.
you're wasting time
Exactly.
if you're resting. Okay, so you talked about like not pausing and self-hate, romantic relationships. What
Hmm.
was your learning in your romantic relationship that you would like to share it with the world out there? Like you generally we end up losing ourselves because हम पूरा time अपने
Yeah.
partner को pamper कर रहे होते हैं. We are looking at their needs and we lose ourselves in that journey. So,
Yeah.
is there any lesson that you have learned in your romantic
Oh my God.
relationship?
I can do I can do an entire podcast series only on that. Only on that.
One
So I think a lot
lesson.
of things. Yeah. In fact, I read something like so funny the other day, like on Twitter. It was Teachers' Day recently, right? So someone put out a tweet saying like wish your ex happy Teachers' Day. So yeah,
Exactly.
you can definitely learn a lot. But one point what you said I also agree with, that initially when you're younger, in your initial romantic relationships, you do lose yourself because you become a mix of who your partner is and who they want you to be, right? So
Hmm.
you become more of that person because you realize instinctively that when I do these things or when I don't do these things, I get the most amount of love from her or him. So you
Hmm.
become more of that person, and
Hmm.
then you get used to being that person, and then when that person is not in your life anymore, now all of a sudden you don't know who you are, so your reality breaks in front of you, right? Because you can't understand yourself anymore and you can't sit with yourself. So the first lesson is, nobody is so valuable that you need to lose yourself for that person. And if you have to lose yourself for that person, you're better off losing that person only and find someone else, right? So that's the hard pill to swallow first. Other than that, a lot of other things you realize, pay attention to red flags. Don't wear what is known as rose tinted glasses, right? Just because someone's good looking or just because you like them a lot, does not justify bad behavior in a lot of ways. And
Exactly.
if you ignore it initially, eventually it's going to come back and haunt you, right? So be a little more careful of red flags. Then like the conventional stuff, in fact, honesty also you learn a lot in relationships, because you realize that any conflict, like if you go back also to your relationship, the first big fight or the second big fight that happened, one of the reasons why it was so big, it was because the smaller fights were ignored.
It
Had
was
you
piled
dealt
up.
with them before, it was piled up, right? Because
Right?
we ignore, and then one fine day just the whole
Burst.
bomb happens, and that's not very nice for for
Right.
you and the other person. So that's an important learning, that conflict delayed is conflict compounded. You delay your conflict, it just keeps compounding, and then all over the place. So these
Yeah.
are a couple of things.
Okay. Since you have been into NLP from a long period of time, a lot of people are not even aware about neurolingual
Yeah.
programming, and it is so powerful. Like just the process of anchoring, yeah, visualization, and it works. Like I have tried it in my life, and it's working for me, बहुत beautifully. So,
Yes.
any simple technique or any method that you would like to share it with our listeners, जो वो immediately implement कर सकते हैं to like boost their confidence or to increase self love in their life, like any simple
Hmm.
technique.
Okay, so this is a bit of a tough question for me. I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
Because NLP is very close to my heart, because it was the first thing that I learned, and the way it entered my life also, and the changes it made were unbelievable, indescribable, like completely. So when I look at NLP, I don't look at it as a toolkit, which is fine. It is a list of tools, and like the way you said, anchoring and all, they're all techniques. But for me, NLP first is a method of thinking, right? It's a method of approaching problems. It's to understand the power of language, right? So NLP also, for those of you who don't know, it's neuro linguistic programming. So it's about using language to change your thought patterns. Now that concept itself is powerful, because when I heard NLP for the first time, I'm like, rubbish, aisa kaisa, just by using different language, how can my life change? But it does
Exactly.
happen like that, right?
Yes.
So NLP, in the ethos of NLP, is more important than the actual nitty-gritties of like the entire technique. But
Hmm.
since you asked me a technique, I'll tell you my all-time favorite technique. In fact, it was so favorite to me that my teacher actually knew that it was my favorite technique. So she told me that, Raunak, don't use this, because if you use this, you'll not practice the other ones. So it was that close to my heart, right? So this is called the swish pattern. Again, don't do it yourself, because it's always you need to work with somebody else, right? I don't think you can do this on your own.
Like a
But swish
practitioner.
pat
Hmm.
yeah, like a practitioner or anyone who knows a little bit about NLP, swish pattern is the best when it comes to dealing with addictions: smoking, alcohol, drugs, sugar, chocolate, carbs, fried food, any kind of
Coffee.
instant gratification thing, coffee, tea, all of it. It
Yeah.
works like magic. Like I've worked on it with myself, with other people, and it's
Yeah.
weird how well it works, and it's a lot of fun to do as well. So go
Okay.
into like the swish pattern; it'll help you a lot.
What is swish pattern?
Okay, so swish pattern essentially requires you to again, and this is a very oversimplified version because I can't go into details,
Yes.
but it's about visualizing two images in your head, right? One is the image of your addiction. So let's say I'll take the example of a cigarette, right? You have to visualize you smoking a cigarette, the entire scene, the way it's happening, and
Mm.
all the values and the happiness it's giving you on one end. You need to have that picture in your mind. On the other end, you have to have an alternative behavior that you would want to cultivate. So in the case of like cigarettes, I would say another quick switch that you can do is have a chewing gum, right? Because you get the same like mouth sensation without the actual, actual tobacco. So you
Mm.
have the alternative behavior also with you. Now,
Mm.
what you do is you have to visualize an entire scene where you see the negative image in front, right, big in front of you in a big screen, and the empowering image as a small screen on the side.
Mm.
And you have to go into a certain state when you're doing this. And when your practitioner says the word swish, you have to imagine physically breaking the screen in front of you where the negative behavior is there, and slowly grow the positive behavior inside you. And you
Okay.
keep doing this over and over again. You can do it 3 to 4 times. Sometimes you can go to 10, 12 times also if you think it's necessary, until your body responds, right? And I like doing it in a more physical way. But in whichever way, if I was doing it with you, I would look for your body movement, right? Initially it becomes too much in the head where you're imagining it to break, but at some point of time, fourth, fifth time, your body will move. And that's when the new pattern is stored in your head, because we think in language and we think in pictures. So if you change the picture that you associate to something, your behavior will also change. So that is one, the essence of swish pattern.
Exactly. That's wonderful. And I'm sure if we practice it like every day, we're gonna have a different language and different picture in front of us, which we can look into.
Yeah,
Yes.
in fact, the beauty of this is you don't even need to do it every day. Like just a couple of times, and it's more than enough if you do it strongly, right? So it's a lot about anchoring it into your body. So that's
Mm.
the wonderful part. Like most NLP, even I'm sure even you know this, that the beauty about NLP is it does not even take multiple sessions. Like normally, I'm not trying to like diss upon any other psychotherapist, but a lot of therapy normally takes months and months, right? This is few sessions. That's it.
Yeah, I remember like the session that we attended, there was this beautiful question in the end that we were thinking, and उन्होंने बोला था कि how better it will get. Ask yourself
Yeah.
this question,
Yeah.
that because we think that, oh my God, if I switch, if I do this and I again go back to the same routine and again fall back, you don't have
Yeah.
to have that thought. You need to have a thought that from this moment, if I've applied this technique, how
Yeah.
much better it will get, right? I
Absolutely.
think that's the thinking that is very important.
Exactly. Exactly.
And to all the listeners, please do it under like proper guidance. Don't do it
Yes.
on your own. Like you can take the
Yeah.
help of NLP practitioners for this.
Yes.
Okay. So next is article modern definition of love is pretty different. Like we are on these apps. Modern definition of relationships is also very different. Swiping
Yeah.
right, swiping left. It happens in a fraction of seconds. And we are with one partner and then with another partner. So what do you think in 2022, love may, what is that one thing that is missing? If you have to say it in a
So
word,
many things are missing.
just
So
one
many.
word.
One word. I think what is lacking is what I call self security. Okay. So I don't know whether this is actually a word or not, but what I mean by that is the opposite of insecurity is what I feel is lacking. Right. So
Hmm.
the way you were giving the example of apps and all,
Hmm.
I think it's very convenient in that sense to just blame technology. But I feel the real reason why all of this is happening is because somewhere down the line, we are not comfortable just being by ourselves,
Hmm.
right? Being secure in yourself, in how you think about yourself, and not seeking validation is what I was coming for. But since you said one word, so I'm trying to like chunk it. So that's what I would say: self security,
I
right?
guess.
Not seeking other people's validation is what is missing, because that's all it is, right? When you swipe, when someone swipes like for you, you get validation. You don't even
Exactly.
care whether the person is right for you or not. That though you'll go on a date, then you'll come to know, right?
Yeah.
But you're already happy. That's
Yes.
the problem.
Okay, so instead of looking for validation from the outside world, it's so important
Yeah.
that you validate yourself, because
Yeah.
otherwise आप पूरा time ही dependent रहोगे future world में, whether it will be posting on Instagram or on YouTube, you making reels just to receive that one like or one comment. So don't run
Yeah.
after it. Just be
Yeah.
comfortable in your own skin, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, next question. It's like it's a little bit different. Okay,
Okay.
so there are two things: love or courage.
Hmm.
And if you have to remove one thing from your life, what will you choose?
Remove one thing from my life.
Will you remove love or
I
will
would.
you remove courage?
I'll remove love, because if you remove courage, you will never be able to get love anyways. So that's why.
Okay. But don't you think life will be different if you don't have love?
Yeah, I do think so. But as I said, if I take courage away and I choose love, I won't get the love that I require anyways. So it's like losing both versus losing none. So at least with courage, other things will take care of itself. I mean, I'm not trying to say love is not important, but there are other things as well, and those require courage, right? So
Exactly. Right. And how to be more courageous to people who are listening to us.
I mean, face your fears. That's the smallest and the only answer that's important, right?
And,
Um,
yeah.
I'll give a very simple exercise. Just take a pen and piece of paper and write down your name first. So if I was doing it for myself, I'll write the sentence: Raunak cannot do dash, and Raunak should not do dash,
Okay.
and start filling all answers to these blanks, and start doing them one by one. Because
Okay.
the first sentence highlights your fear, and the second sentence highlights your shame. And shame is also essentially a social fear itself. So the
Mm.
simple way to become more, like, to become braver in that sense is, in fact, even like a lot of people don't understand courage, that it's not the absence of fear, right? It's the willingness to tolerate it.
Yeah.
It's to be present in that state and say, okay, I'm scared, but I will continue to do it, right? So that happens when you start doing them like one by one. So maybe, like, for example, I'll give you an example of guys. Most guys are embarrassed to dance if they're not drunk, right? Most guys. There are very
Everybody,
few
not
guys who
even
actually
guys,
dance.
even girls. Like I wait for my friends to have like 2, 3 drinks so that they can
Huh.
dance and they can be comfortable.
Yeah, maybe that applies to girls also, but I feel like girls are a little more comfortable with it, right? Guys are like really not. If you
Yeah.
don't get them hammered, they don't dance, right? So
Yeah.
now dance is an element of shame for men. Now you might be ashamed of a lot of things of your life, but this is a smaller aspect. So if you go to a dance class, now you'll make peace with that little bit of uncomfortable feeling that you have. And
Mm.
then you'll progress. So I'm giving a very small example, but applies to a lot of things, right? Maybe you're scared of public speaking, maybe you're scared of starting a podcast, maybe you're scared of starting a business, maybe you're scared of asking a girl out. Whatever it is, start with what you think is the easiest and then keep going onwards. That's the best way to become like braver. That's it.
Awesome. So in the end, I would like to ask you this question that who is Ronak? Like apart
Oh
from your
God,
degrees,
dude.
apart
If
from
I
your
if
degrees.
if I had an answer to that question, I would be in the Himalayas meditating. I would not be here. My God. How am I going to answer that question, man? I don't know how to answer that question. Like, you have to ask some more questions on that.
So apart from your degrees, apart from your qualification, whatever you have learned about yourself till now, what do
Hmm.
you think who are you and what is your ultimate purpose? I know हमें नहीं पता होता हमारा purpose. We are just in the journey of finding a purpose. But what do
Hmm.
you think you have figured out till now? Or if even if you have not figured out, what are you
Hmm.
confused about in life? Because I'm sure our listeners might be in a state जहाँ पे वो confused होंगे या फिर वो figure out कर रहे होंगे या फिर उन्होंने figure out कर लिया होगा सब कुछ. तीनों
Hmm.
phases में कुछ अच्छा नहीं होता, कुछ बुरा नहीं होता. It's every phase is good in our life. So
Right. Right.
what do you think? Who's Ronak and where are you at in your life, like at this stage?
Okay. So I'll try to answer the question the best that I can up until now. See, like physical responsibilities aside, those are things that you have to, right? You need money to live. You need to take care of yourself. You have to stay in like a civilized society. All of that aside, I'll answer the question of purpose, right? And to whatever extent I know myself till now, I have got the most amount of happiness when I work with my potential clients or clients, to help them do things that they didn't think were possible before I met them, right? So I think that gives me the biggest juice in life, is to help people do things that they don't think is possible, either like dealing with a problem or dealing with any sort of issue which they've made them believe themselves that, this doesn't have a solution. And then when you see the light spark in their eyes when they say, okay, this is actually possible for me, that gives me the most amount of happiness. So I think that is what I want to do.
That's your higher purpose, like that.
Higher purpose.
And what are you grateful for in life?
So many things. In fact, like, gratitude is also very interesting. It ties very interestingly to self-love.
Yeah.
And again, my personal opinion is, I think we get gratitude also incorrect, because now, for example, it's you asked me the question, like, what am I grateful for?
Yes.
So immediately it's like money, family, friends, being in a good city, all that stuff, all the good things in life, right? Even when you go to a temple and you pray for the good stuff. But
Yeah.
I feel like the biggest gratitude you should have is for the painful, like, experiences in your life, because they really change who you are as a person. So
Yeah.
gratitude also, if you can give even one, if you can write one thing that you're happy about that didn't go wrong, that went wrong in your life, in your past, that is really builds like self-love, because then that builds a lot of like confidence also, that if I could go through that, and things went my way after that. Like we were talking about a breakup, right? So I'll give you the example because I think that'll be relatable. When the breakup happened, you felt like your world was crumbling down. But now when you look back, aren't you happy that you're not with that person? Because you could be with someone else, right? So it's the same thing, that to be grateful for things that don't go your way is what I call the real level of gratitude, not just things that go our way.
Exactly. That is so important because I can relate with it. Like I was in a toxic relationship. At that point of time, I realized ki, oh my God, why is it ending? I was feeling so bad about it. But after a
Yeah.
month, I was like, thank God I'm out of it. And
Yeah.
once you leave the negativity, you create space for something good also. So I think
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
so gratefulness and gratitude is not just about being grateful for the good things, but
Hmm.
also for the bad things because it is going to make you you, actually.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. That's pretty interesting. So what
In
will
fact,
be
just
yeah.
in fact, just to add to that, I feel like, a lot of times us youngsters, because, and at least me for sure, somewhere we all are control freaks, right? And the apps and all have made us feel that way. Everything should go my way. Sometimes we forget that things being good for you and going your way are not always the same thing, right? If you always got what you thought was right for you, you would have been in a
Messed up.
mess by now. Exactly.
I
Exactly.
heard it somewhere किसी ने कहीं पर बोला था कि God is hearing conversations which you're not and then he's taking
Yeah.
steps for you. So
Exactly. Exactly.
we come from a very limited mindset, but the entire universe has a very different plan for us
Yeah.
and it is a plan which is happening at their timings. हमारे timings हमें उस समय
Hmm.
सही लगते हैं, but universe के timings like एकदम perfect होते हैं. Like I have experienced that in my life.
Exactly. All of us have at some point, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, what will be your message to all our listeners in the end? Any message, any advice that you like to give them related to self love or generally, which will help them to grow in their life?
Hmm. Growing. I don't know if I can give advice or no, because it's very difficult to give advice without context, and I feel like we have too many people giving advice without context.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether I'll do that, but I'll tell you this one quote, okay? And this quote is really close to my heart because it's what I read in my lowest moments when I literally don't feel like doing anything. I feel like waking up and just genuinely only spending money and not doing anything else in life. This is what I tell myself, right? So this is a quote by Jordan Peterson. He was asked in this interview that what advice would you give young men, and it applies to even women as well, but his audience is essentially men. So he
Hmm.
was asked the question that what advice would you give young men in their 20s? And he said, allow for the possibility that you have something valuable to contribute to the world. And I feel like this sentence is so well framed that I wouldn't want to make any change into this, because sometimes you might not know what value you have to contribute or how you're going to do it or what is going to happen and all of that. But if you wake up every day in your lowest moments and just allow for the possibility that there's something valuable inside you which is already there,
Hmm.
which can contribute to somebody else's life, it takes care of almost every aspect of your life, including personal and professional. A lot of, like, I mean, at the end of the day, even money is important, but how do you earn money? When you add value to other people's life, no one's going to give you money for free, right? So
Exactly.
even that is important. So this is, I think, one thing that I will leave you with. In your darkest moments where you feel unmotivated, just allow for the possibility that you have something valuable to contribute to the world.
एब्सोल्युटली एंड कई बारी लिसनर्स हमें लगता है कि अरे मैं क्या वैल्यूबल कंट्रीब्यूट करूंगा आई एम जस्ट अ स्टूडेंट और आई एम जस्ट अ
Yeah,
सेकंड ईयर
yeah,
स्टूडेंट आई एम जस्ट इन स्कूल बट ट्रस्ट मी इट इज वेरी पावरफुल एवरी सिंगल वन ऑफ अस वी आर यूनिक इन आवर ओन वे एंड कहीं ना कहीं
yeah.
हमें कोई ना कोई स्किल है एंड वी हैव अ हायर पर्पस इन लाइफ वेयर ऑब्वियसली हम नेटफ्लिक्स वगैरह देखने के लिए तो नहीं आए होंगे इस यूनिवर्स से
Yeah, exactly,
there must be a
exactly.
higher purpose and it's okay if you have not figured out till now you will be able to figure it out but just have that inquisitiveness and curiosity to think about the higher purpose in life.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly.
Thank you so much, Raunak, for your time and for being here, sharing your views and opinion and the technique, NLP technique. And in case if people want to reach out to you, where can they reach out to you? You can share your Instagram account.
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure you have all my links as well. You can reach out to me on Instagram at Ronnie's Radio. And you can also reach out to me on Twitter, which is by my name, Raunak Shah. And these are the two best places where you can hit me up.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. Take care. And in the end, so Jolly, I say this line, but since you're the guest, so you can say this line. So the line
Okay.
goes like, don't forget to say to yourself, hey self, I love you. So
Don't
you
forget to say to yourself, hey self, I love you.